Well, let me approach it from a different manner and try to give a better comprehensive totality of the whole event, without getting into detail, because you're witnessing a lot of different buying situations that are surfacing. I was stuck with another one that sounds very promising and very profound out of London today. That was very high amounts. I get these probably every other day. I get a new buying source or someone that's wanting to buy these historical assets. It is a fact that there's multiple intakes, authorized multiple intakes throughout the globe. But what we have to consider, what we have to look at is the global events. So I would steer everyone's focus to these global events. So regardless if you have your assets in with us, with another potential party, that could be very valid, nothing is going to happen until these particular events happen. And these events I think I can speak of and speak to without getting into detail, one of them being the new electronic banking system. This is a meeting that will be taking place come November 30th. I think all the release of all these funds are all poised. They've all been released. But these funds will not be paid out in the current fiat currency. The TRNs and how they're going to integrate into the global financial systems will come out in electronic fashion, just as in the GCR with the global currency reset and this the reassetting of currencies. When you reasset currencies, you have to look at the common sense of this. There's still the current currencies, the current fiat system is what's controlling the globe. It doesn't just go away. So you're not going to see this big spark and influx of capital globally without taking into consideration the currencies and the movement of currencies and how they function in our global economy today. So it's integration that's going to happen, starting with the electronic banking system. Now, we've got a lot. If I could speak to everything that we know, but we're not allowed to do this. So I'm trying to speak in terms of the indicators that you see, a lot of the rumors that you hear flying around. There's partial truths in a lot of them. A lot of these things have been expanded on. The time frames, we have never quoted time frames to hold that position. We want to speak to things that are done, not going to get done. So we don't want to throw out any time frame because there's too many different variables globally that happen that are so far above everyone's pay grade. We're just not in the G20 meetings, the G7, G12. We're not in those meetings. We're not in the, we catch the reports out of them and what their intent is, but it's such a moving target and a work in progress that always eventualities come up that dictate the delays. Security issues, just the logistics of moving these funds in the global financial system and how it's going to be done. Is it coming down through the private sector, through the corporate structures? Karen Hughes put out a video on November 10th. Karen is the legal counsel for the global currency reset or the debt default system. It's a good one. You can Google it on YouTube and watch that video. It gives some understanding of her point of view on how these funds are going to trickle down through the corporate structure, not through the governments. The G20, their motivations along with China and the elders, their point of view is to bring it down through the projects. There's going to be an influx of capital, but this capital is not going to jump into all the global banking system. The new banking system is an electronic banking system. It's the Babylon 2 IP system. It's been going side by side with the current banking system now for a couple of years. So this new IP system will take away the latitude that the Cabal banking system has had in manipulating your funds as a depositor or an investor into banking. And it will run in conjunction with the Basel III banking system, or the Basel III compliance, which is asset-backed currencies. So as these currencies become asset-backed and electronic, it'll be an elimination of certain financial instruments that we've seen in the past in the way that the financial markets work. You'll see new financial instruments that come up, the integration of the bond markets, the currency markets, the stocks markets. It's all going to have a bit of a gradual change in a new paradigm. So we'll see these electronic currencies. When you see the global currency reset, there's only a dozen or more that are actually going up. When you go to the gold standard, there's a lot of countries and sovereigns that have stayed on the gold standard. But we have actually been on the gold standard in some fashion. It's never really went away. But these funds that everyone's looking for compensation on the currencies or the historical assets cannot be paid out in fiat funds. So don't let the rumors get you too excited. Don't plan your life by it until you see these paradigms change, these banking systems change. So the new asset-backed currencies is how everyone has to be paid for these debts. Now, historical assets are unpaid sovereign debts. These currencies have assets that back them up. That transition from the paper fiat funds that are currently hedged against these assets has to integrate into the new electronic systems and the new banking systems that is more of a whole world order. It's a new world order banking system, which has never been done before. It started back, in the Federal Reserve Act, and the 1913 Fed Act is when it started, when the Federal Reserve came up, and again with the Bretton Woods in 44, 46, when we figured out ways to, the global authorities were dealing with different decades. They could only deal with the financial instruments at their controlled time. Those financial instruments are still floating around the globe in the form of what we are now looking at. The Treaty of Versailles and the TOV boxes, the Chinese bonds. It goes into the German Young bonds, to the Japanese 57s. They're all interlaced and connected as a global currency or a global financial instruments of their decade. So they have been moved forward into the new decades, but now we're in this computerized electronic network where before we used to have to mail things or FedEx them, then we went to faxing, now we're to emailing, and now it's going to where it'll be automated. The automation takes away the opportunities for thievery. Because you have to remember that the bad guys is what this is all about. All the corrupt banking behavior that has manifested and grown over the years that has caused the situation we're in is since 2007 basically is when they started. They knew about it then, and 2007 is when they had to make the adjustments. So from 2007 forward is when these new systems that we're going to be experiencing in the near future here, in the very near future, come to a reality. So when we talk about the historical assets, the bonds, when we talk about the currencies, you have to keep in mind the bigger picture has to take place. Let your common sense rule here. These billions, hundreds of millions, in some cases trillions of dollars have to move through the banking community and the global financial and the financial infrastructures of countries. Okay, you can't disrupt it. The global authority knows this. You should use again your common sense to realize that we're not going to get $100 trillion dropped into the global economy without disrupting it, and without disrupting the economies of sovereign countries. It can't happen. The four that are going into the first basket were currencies. When you're talking currencies, the Vietnamese dong, the Iraqi dinar, the rupiah, and the Zimbabwe zim, Indonesian rupiah and the Zimbabwe zim. These are currencies that depreciated so bad that they were taken out of and not allowed to function in the global financial community and global trade. They were set aside, disconnected. They were given the opportunity, these four particular sovereigns were given the opportunity over the past years to develop themselves into a position where they could come back into the global financial communities. Now, there's other